Good. Great.
Great. We are in the podcast number 2, answering your questions. Here they are. That you submitted to the note from Greg in response to the message, Christ is King. So, Greg asked for these cultural questions, and we're going to tackle them because we talked for a long time in the first one.
Yeah, we set a lot of context, and now it's time to actually answer the questions.
Let's do it.
yeah.
So, the first question that we are going to tackle, is there anything biblical on cremation, pro or con?
Let's start with simple questions. No, there's not anything in the Bible on cremation, pro or con. So if you catch me in the comments, I have a few thoughts on it, but I don't think it's a significant issue. You shouldn't stress out about it.
There you go. Don't stress. All right, number 2. How can anybody believe it is okay to murder babies, or abortion is in parentheses, and want to protect murderers and rapists, thinking that is okay, as one of our political parties do?
Yeah, so you just read that question word for word, as it was sent in, and this has been one of the challenges for me, honestly, when I receive these questions is, first of all, I asked for questions, and I respect anybody who would send them to me. And second, it's like, some of the questions we receive, it feels like they're a little loaded in the way that they're asking them.
Yeah.
And I do want to do my best to answer them, but I also want to pull apart the questions sometimes. And I don't know who sent any of these questions. This is all anonymous. So if this was you, I'm not trying to nail you personally. But, I think when a question gets phrased as wanting to protect murderers and rapists, thinking that's okay, and that one of our political parties does that, I just want to step back from that and say, not true and not helpful. Right now, we're going to talk about abortion here, and it's a very important subject, and our political parties do see that one 2 different ways. But, when you say, hey, a political party thinks rapists are okay, it's just not true. And it's one of the things I think followers of Jesus have to do in this world is to say, hey, it's the truth that will set us free. So the moment we start exaggerations, or we start kind of layering, language that kind of drops a bomb into a conversation, we're not peacemaking anymore, which is one of the calls of Jesus, and we're not, navigating these in the healthiest of ways. So I do want to appropriately critique the tone of the question. You've heard me say Suncrest is a politically diverse church. I think that's good. We are not. We're more willing than ever to step into political issues, as we're talking about today, but not partisan. We will not be endorsing a party or speaking against a party or candidates in particular. And that doesn't mean I believe there's a moral equivalency between the 2 major parties, or among all. There's lots of political parties that are out there. And so, it's hard to give all this context for what we're saying and what we're not saying. But I do think this is a good chance to talk about abortion just a little bit. And, as more people have heard me say that, clearly, like, I think abortion is one of the greatest sins of America, that I really want to advocate for unborn children that are in the womb. People ask me why, and I've had conversations at this table or in my office, actually, with people who are genuinely trying to sort this out, and they've been informed by different experiences and and perspectives and education in life. And so one of the things that makes this the clearest to me is I think it can be legitimately challenging to make a biblical argument for when, like, personhood, human life as a person begins. And again, I don't mean to make this more complicated than it needs to be, but you'll hear people say, hey, is that at a time of viability, when the child could exist outside the womb? Is it at the heartbeat? Is it when a child breathes? Right. Is it at the moment of fertilization? All of that. And I don't think the Bible speaks specifically to that. It does absolutely honor the idea that God is weaving us together in our mother's womb. But here's why this is such a big deal to me. If there's any question at all, whether the child in the womb is a child, is a person, is one who has the image of God, and maybe you and I, or not you and I necessarily, but you and me and someone would sit across the table and say, I'm not sure, viability, heartbeat. I can't imagine any scenario where the next step is to say, Yeah, and it's okay to end that life. Like if you if you don't know or you can't know,
Mm.
then on what moral footing am I placing myself to say, yep, and I'll decide we'll end that. And I think one of the big parts of being a Christian leader is fighting for the most vulnerable in our society, particularly having a voice for people who don't have a voice for themselves. And, unborn children are in that category for me. I do think the language of abortion is tricky.
Yeah.
Right. So I'll speak for myself. You can add to this if you'd like. But
Yeah.
Jenny and I have had a couple of miscarriages,
Yep.
and
we have to.
you have to. And I know that's a common experience. People discover how common it is a lot of times when you have your first, right? But that when we went through that, the doctor said, "Oh, you had an abortion." And that was the medically appropriate term for what happened. It was a natural abortion. My wife's body, brought that pregnancy to an end, right? But I imagine when he said the word abortion and he saw my eyes get this big, he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna need to talk this guy down
Yeah.
from the ledge a little bit." And it's okay, but I just think that language. I talk to nurses in our church who are like, "Oh, women hear that word, people hear that word, and it, unless you bring definition to it, take the time to bring definition. It's a word that you don't want to just assume everyone knows what it means and throw it around wildly and then let it become politicized and such. So I have a lot of pastoral sensitivity to that. And as I've said before, to the women in our church who have had abortions, and I want them to experience fully and only the grace of God through that, and a journey to wholeness, not a life marked by guilt, that they don't need to carry because the grace of God covers that.
Yeah. I have nothing to add to that. Well done. Well said.
It's important. So
It absolutely is important. Number 3. What are your thoughts on zodiac signs and birth charts? I tend to find a lot of truth in this. I'm reading the question. This isn't my question. I tend to find a lot of truth in them, but I'm leery because I feel like they go against Christianity.
Yeah. A great question. I hear this question more than ever. Like there is spiritual interest out there, or interest in mysteries of this world, even if it's not necessarily spiritual.
Sure.
But I also like your instinct when the question says, "I'm leery because I feel like they go against Christianity." I'm like, live in that leeriness, right? Don't mess with that stuff. And I want to say that pretty aggressively first. Like, do not mess with zodiac, birth charts, palm readers, Ouija boards, all that stuff. Just stay away from it. And then let me step back for a second and say why. That's so important to me. First of all, there is a spiritual realm.
Mm-hmm.
There is good and godly things in the spiritual realm, and there is evil and demonic things in the spiritual realm. The scriptures are really clear about this. It's not always the easiest to discern what exactly, to immediately call something demonic probably gets overplayed, sure. I think, in church cultures.
Sure. We lost power the other day.
Right.
It was demonic.
It was the demons in the system. But so my perspective on this is, first of all, there is evil in the spiritual realm, and whatever zodiac is, or some of the other things I just mentioned, I'm not sure why you would mess with them, because they either are evil, and that's true. The evil one can use things like this, or they're one off. Well, here's what they're not. They're not Christ focused. They're not our North Star of the scriptures and the Holy Spirit and what God gives us to guide us.
Yeah.
And so, am I afraid of, the boogeyman, the devil, and some of these things? Not really. But I think it's fair to live in concern of that realm and then just talk wisdom. Like, why would you chase that?
Yeah.
Right. I think the other thing that happens, and this is bigger than just zodiac signs and birth charts, is one of the things I notice about people is we let our identities get hijacked by different things.
Yeah.
Right? We believe lies about ourselves sometimes. Sometimes we take a personality or a temperament test and it says we're a certain way.
Which Harry Potter character I am, but yes. Mm-hmm.
Among Enneagram, disc profiles, all these things,
Yeah.
none of which are bad. They can be helpful tools. But the moment you decide that's who I am, I'm a 3 on the Enneagram, or I'm a high D, high I on the disc profile, or choose a Harry Potter character.
Obviously,
Yeah.
Hufflepuff.
Well, Mitch, I've never seen a Harry Potter movie or read a Harry Potter book, and it's just so you know, it's not related to this question about spiritual realm. I think they're harmless, perfectly harmless. But I think we start to embrace an identity that is one off of who we are as a follower of Jesus,
Yeah.
right? And then it takes on such a big, so, zodiac signs. When I was a kid, I read my horoscope. It was in the newspaper, those printed things that used to get delivered to
Never
your
heard of it
houses.
before.
Yeah, I understand.
So yeah, there's no gray on my hair at all.
Yeah.
Look closely.
And I know I'm a Leo, right? I'm actually July 23rd, first day of a Leo and a birthday. Like, I know those things. And it was interesting. I would read those things in the paper sometimes, and some of it seems true, right? And I think in some ways similar to how a psychic can make things sound true about your life.
You're gonna have a hard day at some point. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, but then when you read that and you let it become part of who you are, you're like, oh, then you live your life through that lens, right? That's what I mean by an identity thing. And I'm like, hey, just let all those other lenses fall to the side and live through the lens of Christ is King, the way of Jesus, whatever that's guiding you to. Let that be your primary, dare I say, only guide.
Yeah.
So
You've said this too before around some of this stuff when we're talking about identity and how to build one. Is one of the things that we unintentionally do in letting our identity get hijacked is letting ourselves be defined by created things.
Yes.
And not the creator.
Yes.
And so like this is one like the stars.
The stars. This is the zodiac stuff, right?
It's created.
Yeah.
Like it's not the creator. And so like the goal of anyone, especially those of us who are following Jesus, is trying to point people to wrestling with meeting the being, the person of God who intentionally made you.
That's so good.
So yes,
because there's good things and evil things, and sometimes people don't love those categories. There's higher things and lesser.
Yeah.
So this is creator and created, right? I'm like, why would you let the clearly lesser things, the things the creator created, guide you when there's a creator who's guiding you?
Yeah. All right. Do you feel we are in the end times in light of the frequency and intensity of disasters, wars and rumors of wars, division in our country and government, crime and shootings everywhere? Yeah. I didn't do a good job of reading them. They're all questions. So do you feel like we're in the end times?
All right. So yes, I feel like we're in the end times.
You can't come out
Hey, when Paul was writing the New Testament, we were in the end time.
Oh, sorry.
Mitch. So,
all right. Well, technically, okay. Go ahead, elaborate.
I do appreciate your reaction to that because I do mean it that way. I'm like,
oh, you do.
I mean, we have been, we are, and we will be in the end times. And that's, as my passage said, that I was reading from, in the third week of Ghost Stories, like, Jesus says, it's not for you to know the times or the dates. This is by the Father's authority. Stop trying to calculate it. Instead, be prepared and be on mission.
Yeah.
Right? That's the idea. I do want to take a little exception with this question. And whoever asked this, I think you're in good company, that a lot of people, as they experience today's world, they feel like, hey, there's more natural disasters than ever. The world's in a horrible place. Murders all over the place, those sorts of things. And I just want to place, I think, a more truthful, godly, and optimistic view about our world, right? So I have all the evidence points to the idea that the world we're living in today is as good as the world has ever been.
No, my algorithm tells me that's not true.
Well, your TikTok feed or Instagram Reels. Your gut. Yeah, your experiences. We'll get to that later.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But so why is that? Well, first of all, we're all consuming a lot of news. We'll call it news first, in addition to social media.
Sure.
But, things get identified today as like, if it bleeds, it leads. That's been true for generations now, right? So they're going to feed you the most horrible stories of what's going on in the world. Technology and media now can capture all these things that are horrible that are going on in the world when they were all going on before, but not captured and put in front of your face on such a consistent basis.
Fight the algorithm.
Fight the algorithm. But, I've told this story a few times. I'll just say, I was once in a group of guys. This is my men's group, early Saturday morning. It was actually kind of in the COVID season, right? And one of the guys was saying like, "Oh, look how horrible the world is, the world we live in today," and kind of the same kind of thing. And I just looked at him and I'm like, not only do I disagree, you're factually wrong. He's like, how do you know? I said, well, a couple reasons. Number one, we're sitting by your swimming pool, drinking Starbucks coffee that costs way more than it should, but we can afford to drink it.
Yeah.
Talking about how the world's the worst it's ever been.
You have a pool of water in your backyard that is for nothing more than getting in and out of and feeling refreshed.
Yeah.
And playing.
And your grandkids can come over and they can jump and have toys in said water kept at a perfect temperature.
Have to figure out how you're going to drink that water or use it for other things.
Right.
Or actually you just turn a knob and then when it gets a little low,
out of thousands and thousands of years of human history or millions of years of Earth's history, people don't get to live like for a living.
No.
This is pretty great. Now, in addition to our own experience with that, I brought charts today.
He's got charts, folks. He's
got
got charts.
I was ready for this question because, again, I know lots of people feel this way. And why did I even do the message? It is because things are chaotic. It feels like there's spasms of violence in our world. So I'm not trying to be dismissive on the whole, that we should be concerned about how we as followers of Jesus are navigating and bringing light to a dark world. That said, this is the chart of infant mortality over history. Record lows, and it's not close. This is a chart for the end of poverty. And I mean, from the 1800s to the 1900s to where we are today, the half-life of people living in poverty is shrinking. And it's like, very quickly, we're getting close to the edge of the end of poverty. Let me just read this. In 1820, 84% of the world's population lived in extreme poverty. In today's dollars, less than $1.90 a day people were living on. 84% in 1820. That's just dropped off. Today we're nearing less than 10%.
Wow.
And on a path to less than 5%. So again, you and I may not experience that, but God is the God of the whole world. I thought this one's interesting. More land for nature, right? I mean, aren't the headlines that deforestation is going and it's going to be the end of our world because of climate and such? Did you know that more of the earth is covered by trees today than for a long, long time in the past? How about this one? Democracy. You may or may not love democracy. I love it. I think it's a good thing. The blue chart is the upward tilt of democracy in our world over the last century or so. Safer world from natural disasters. I don't know if you can see this. Like big spikes early 1920s, 1940s, 1960s. We've almost completely eliminated death from natural disasters. Now, if you're an insurance company, you're feeling the natural disasters. Why? Because we're so stinking rich.
Yeah.
And we've decided we can build stuff in the path of natural disasters. Yeah. And then when it gets knocked over,
we're like, I can't believe
that happened. Look how horrible the world is.
How horrible.
Again, I want to be careful about that. But we can achieve universal literacy. We can talk about life expectancy rising.
I've never felt more like Chris Pratt than in this moment, but it's like, I don't know that I can read. I think I've just memorized a lot of words. So that's a sidebar.
So do I think we're in the end times from the perspective that God has given us a mission to do? Yes, we're in the end times. From the perspective that you should be prepared for the return of Christ, and you should have some urgency around helping everyone around you be prepared for the return of Christ. Yes, we're in the end times. Is it because there's more wars, floods, earthquakes, and such?
Things that a book in the Bible hints at in ways that have been construed as one specific thing.
I think this is where I say and don't want to say, I am thinking about doing a series on Revelation in the next year, maybe 2 years, keeping my options open.
I would keep your options open. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Keep your options open.
But I feel like there'd be a little hunger for it. And while some people really want me to do that, actually the people who really want me to do it are probably the people who are keeping me from doing it, because like there's almost too much magnetism toward that.
Yeah.
I do think really good, healthy perspective. What was God saying about the coming into the world, our confidence as a follower of Jesus, our mission in the midst of it? And Revelation is full of that.
Absolutely. I had my senior seminar in Bible college. I had a professor, very, very smart guy, way smarter than I am. I was not good at school, but
What was his name, Mitch?
Freddie Johnson.
Fred Johnson.
Fred Johnson.
I also had Fred Johnson as a professor. Uber smart.
Uber smart. I spent my entire senior year in one class, and he started the class off with, "I'm about to summarize all of Revelation for you, but I'm going to make all of you do a chapter at a time."
Yeah.
Which was really kind. And the summation of it. So here you go. You ready? The world will never get so crazy that God feels like he has to get off the throne. The end.
The end.
So there you go.
Well said.
If you want Greg to talk about that for 3 weeks, go ahead. And
Yeah. But or what do I myself?
right. All right. End times. Great. Number 5 is immigration. So last time we had talked about some of the complexities, some of the real life stories that we are rubbing up against as a community of people. Is there anything to add that you have come across since we talked?
Well, yes, there is. I want to say, out of the podcast we released, that story that we told of someone who's part of our church and connected to our church generated the most conversations for me out of that podcast, and I'm grateful for that, right? Because again, we don't live in a world always where we're up close and we're dealing with the real life parts of this. So I do see two extremes that kind of have to do with public policy and I think have to do with personal faith for those of us who are followers of Jesus. And I will use kind of the left and the right, not necessarily Republican, Democrat, but
we're not partisan.
But we are. You'll see here. I am not partisan. So, because one of my questions for myself, I think I want to be a voice of truth within both of those groups, and I get some chance to be within both of those groups. So, I will say, I speak up against my friends on the far left when it comes to immigration issues, when they seem to suggest there should be no borders at all, that the borders absolutely should be porous, and then they attach Jesus' name, or try to attach Jesus' name, at least when I'm in the conversation, to that, and say, that is, our God is a God of order, right? And borders, I think sometimes it's good to run a little bit of a test to say, okay, well, is what I want to be true for, the government, the structure of a country, is that how I want it to be true for, like my community, my home, my things like that? And like, no, there's an orderliness to this, and the orderliness is not to keep everyone out, right? So borders matter, not to keep everyone out, but to avoid chaos. God is a God of order, and borders ought to be that the purpose of borders is orderliness, right? Not necessarily even tight control, just orderliness. And so, I do think, one of the things we experience in our world today, because the border hasn't been controlled. Let's just say that, is we now live in some chaos. And now we're in a tough situation, right? Because there hasn't been an orderliness to this. So I think, we should have borders. I have borders at my house.
Sure.
Right. I have borders, like it's a healthy thing to have borders. Where do I speak up against my friends on the right?
Sure.
I think the rhetoric on the far right is almost designed to dehumanize people. And the moment you start dehumanizing people, you are out of bounds. Out of bounds. So I think it disregards a real role that a morally guided country could and should play to welcome refugees,
Hmm.
right? People who, are dying, people who are in political situations or social situations where we could be the respite for them. And then again, a good orderly system to bring that in. But the moment you draw the line on the border and you say nobody gets in and you don't welcome refugees who are really in need, then I think you have to look at your morality as a country and the decisions that you're making, especially a country that's as wealthy as ours is.
Sure.
Right? Because that's part of it, right? We do have capacity as a country to welcome and help others. And so to start drawing lines that say no, and then, some of the rhetoric around this is, if you've ever been in a conversation near me and someone said use the word illegal as a noun, the illegals, you will get me jumping into that conversation very quickly, right?
So don't just start dropping that.
Or do, and then you can find out how it goes. So this is Greg fun, right? Like, hey, let's have it out, right? Because you talked about identity before, right? Now you haven't even given someone a human noun, right? They're just an illegal.
Yeah.
Like
About their choices or the function of their choices or
they're people.
Yeah.
Right. And they are making choices, and our, as we talked about last time, like our system, has not had a healthy approach to discern those things. But especially then when it comes to the enforcement side, and this comes some out of the story that you told last week, that okay, if there is enforcement that needs to be done, I want us to do that in a morally elevated way also, right? I had somebody say to me, and again, I can't remember who said this. If it was you, I am going to critique you here, just so you know. Someone said, well, sometimes you got to crack a few eggs to make an omelet. And I hear this, and it's not, in this case, it was on this issue from the right? Oh, well, if we're going to solve the problem, like some people are going to have to unjustly pay a price, I think is what was being said. And I just think that's wrong. I think if your mindset going in is, well, in order to solve a big problem, this is an ends and means question.
We've talked about this before.
In order to get to the ends that I want, I'm going to have to take some non-Jesus-centric means to get there. And the moment you're in that category, I'm going to look you in the eye and say, nope, not if you're a follower of Jesus.
Yeah.
No, you don't actually have to crack a few eggs to make it on. You don't actually have to make some people face injustice in order for the system to work. If your goal is for the system to work, but you have to get the system to work by doing things that aren't right, aren't just, aren't kind, aren't dignified, then I want the followers of Jesus in that circle to speak up and say, nope, it's actually our role to pay attention to the means, how we do things, not just the ends, what needs to get done.
Yeah, because ultimately in some of that, the conversation is, in some fashion, it's like, oh, well, the kingdom of God is coming, and it's easy to then start justifying the kingdom of God is coming.
Right.
And as if we have some stake in it coming, like it's going to come if I crack a few eggs or if I step up and it's like, actually God could choose to not use any of us and it's still gonna show up in ways that you weren't ready for. And so like the idea that there's somehow a devoid function that will justify the end result that you're aiming at. Like,
and of course, I'm going to go back to Christ is King.
Yeah.
Right. So we're doing this in the way of Jesus. And I want you to watch, if you're a follower of Jesus, I want you to watch how Jesus led things. Now, again, if Jesus had a group of consultants around him to say, hey, what would be the best way to go about saving the world? Him turning the other cheek, him being silent before Pilate, him going to the cross and being nailed, probably not what people would say. But Jesus lived lived out not just the end goal of kingdom come, but actually, I'm not rising up. I'm not taking power that's not mine. Actually, this is what Satan tempted him with.
Yeah.
This was a temptation towards sinfulness
Yeah.
to say, oh, just do it this way and all this, and you'll have the power, and then you'd use the power for good things, right? So go get the power, however you need to do it. And then, no, not okay.
Yeah.
It's not. We do it the way Jesus taught us to do it.
Yeah.
Not just trying to get to the end that we want, or even that we think Jesus would want.
That's good. I'm playing devil's advocate. This is number 6. I'm not just saying this. Those who are strict about gender say God made male and female, and that's that. But God made day and night too, so how do you explain sunrise and sunset?
Yeah. So if you're just listening to this, you probably need to think about what just got
Mhm.
read for a moment. But let me say a few things.
Yeah.
I love it when people say I'm not the devil's advocate. I'm like, that's good, because the devil does not need an advocate, right?
He's got some things figured out.
He's got some things figured out, and we should work against him. I also think this. I actually do know the person who sent this question, because she sent it to me personally. In addition to that, and she is a saint at Suncrest, so I love that. Also, this feels very like what would show up in my Instagram reels.
Hmm.
And here's what I mean by that. I have a biblical interpretation that might even kind of sound smart. And if I agree with the end of it, I think it's a good interpretation. And I'm like, yeah, Mitch, you and I have talked about the death of expertise.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's a big thing in our world. We're like, we don't trust experts anymore because everyone thinks they're an expert or whatever.
I have access to the same information that the experts do. So
Yeah.
what makes them better than me?
And I'll be the first to say, interpreting the Bible is not the easiest thing in the world to do. And I have a bachelor's degree and a 75-hour master's degree that is largely oriented toward interpreting the Bible. And I still wrestle with things. But without sounding arrogant, I do want to say I have a 75-hour master's degree, and interpreting the Bible is not just feelings, right? There are ways, like, to say, okay, we're tackling a tough subject here, a prominent subject in today's world, gender, identity, things like that. That should be given some expertise in how to interpret it. And actually, again, a lot of this lives behind the scenes here, but our elders who do know the scriptures, right? You wouldn't be one of our elders if you don't know the scriptures. Have spent some time, knowing this is a cultural issue and thinking about how is Suncrest navigating this. And we come up. I brought all my charts today, right?
He's got all the charts.
So this is 2020. Our elders, wrote up this document about guidance for transgender, and it's so much more robust than the Instagram reel that comes through. This is thoughtfulness. This is prayer. This is paying attention to lots of Bible passages. This is, interpreting with good principles and context and such. So, probably my biggest thing I'm saying here is be careful about flippantly interpreting the Bible, especially when it lines up with what you want it to say. Be careful about flippantly receiving an interpretation of the Bible from social media or anywhere else.
Sure.
And just be aware that we're all prone, we have a place we start. Motivated reasoning is a real thing. We want the Bible to say something, and we're much more open to the arguments that go that direction. So I said all that without talking about the subject of gender.
Yeah, you've
at all.
completely ignored it.
So let me talk just a little bit about gender issues. Okay.
You're gonna solve all of them.
I'm gonna give you some principles to guide
Me.
how to think about all of them. So, if you've been around Suncrest, you've heard me say, hey, creation, brokenness, redemption, restoration. That this is the storyline of history. This is God's storyline. And you can take that storyline, I think, in really helpful ways. And this is one of the ways you'd interpret the Bible. Lay any issue on that storyline and say, oh, does that help us? Because that's like a big principle. So in the created world, the world's the way God wanted it to be.
Mm-hmm.
In the broken world, which is the world we live in and has existed since the earliest chapters of Genesis,
Sure.
this is the world not the way God wants it to be, and his orientation toward it is redemption,
Mm-hmm.
right? Not condemnation. So this is I think what's really helpful. In the created world, before brokenness comes, the scriptures say God created male and female.
Mm-hmm.
There's some distinction. There's equal value. We
Mm-hmm.
can talk through all of those things. And that's really simple in the created world.
Mm-hmm.
And then we get to a broken world, right? And the broken world, and I think most people probably don't appreciate how broken this world is, right? Because it's broken in the sense that I sinned and you sinned, and that's how most people think about it.
Yep.
But our psychology is broken.
Yep.
Our biology
Mm-hmm.
is broken. The earth groans. Talked about earthquakes earlier. Like that's part of the brokenness of this world.
Yeah.
It's not the way God wants it to be. And so, especially, a lot of the conversation around gender is at the intersection of biology and psychology,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so, without reading the whole document to you, one of the things our elders are really clear about is to say, hey, there's brokenness in our world, psychologically, the way we see ourselves,
Yeah.
and we have to pay attention to that. We should, none of us, you and me included, should think, well, the way I see myself or the way I feel about myself, that's who I am.
Mm.
That is a broken way
Yeah.
of thinking. And I understand it's real. And so that's why we meet people where they are in the conversation. But our psychology is broken. In actually a small percentage, but it's real,
Mm-hmm.
of human beings, their biology is broken.
Yeah.
Right. When it comes to gender is what I'm talking about. Like, you were, I don't mean to get too technical about this, but born with genitalia that was not defined.
Hormonal differences.
All of those things,
Yep.
right? And so this is not, again, we live in a social media world or a quick judgment world, and I'm trying to pull us back from that to say, hey, let's talk about what's really going on here.
Yeah,
How God created you. And I want, let me just read, this is the very short version of some conclusions we've reached about transgender issues. It says, we see no scriptural basis to make a distinction between a person's biological sex and their gender identity. In pastoral conversations with followers of Jesus, we will lead them to embrace their biological sex, not to reject it. Like all pastoral conversations, we will patiently work through this with anyone willing to be on that journey.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So, it doesn't, you don't have to get hyper about it. Just like, there's a lot of brokenness in this world. Let's meet people where they are. Let's be full of truth
Mm-hmm.
and full of grace, as Jesus was, and walk with people toward a healthy identity that, is, in my view, bringing people, into alignment with their biological sex, if that is clear.
Yeah.
So
I think in some ways too, it helps redefine the conversation. So like, to oversimplify some of what we do as pastors, like I'm constantly trying to get you to change your identity. Like, it doesn't matter who you are, whether you are someone wrestling with gender anything, whether you're someone wrestling with greed, whether you're someone wrestling with adultery, whether you're someone wrestling with lying. Like, I'm trying to get you to change your identity.
These are all fundamentally identity conversations.
And they can fundamentally shape the story you tell you about you.
Yes.
And so one of the most powerful things, and this is just something that's really, really fun. I'm going to call it Mitch fun. Why not? Right.
There you go.
Is like in pastoral conversations, one of the helpful questions that, one of the unhelpful, helpful questions that I've been asked through my own journey is like, hey, what do you think God thinks about you? Which is like, oh, wow, that's so big. I don't know how to answer that.
Right.
One of the more helpful things that has been asked to me and now is like, oh, that's the first thing I'm asking every time is, what do you tell you God thinks about you?
Yeah.
What do you
What
tell
story?
you? What story are you telling you about who you are? What story are you telling you about your culture? What story are you telling you about God, the divine, however you want to look at it, whether you're a follower of Jesus or not? Like,
Yeah.
what are the stories that you are telling you? And part of our role, Greg's role, my role, anyone on our team's role is, hey, I want you to tell a truer story.
A truer story.
And anyone who is wrestling with that, okay, go on, grab it. Yeah,
Sorry. This one's
please.
back here.
He's got more charts.
I have no more charts. I do have a heads up that right after the first of the year,
Yeah.
we're going to do a series on the inner life.
Spoiler alert.
Right? And it's a lot about our thought life.
Yeah.
And exactly what you're saying here is the range of like, okay, we 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 have thoughts about ourselves. We tell ourselves stories, and it shapes us. We did a series once years ago called "Flip the Script."
Yeah.
And one of the lines in it, which I'll use again in this upcoming series, is something doesn't have to be true to carry the power of truth in your life.
Man.
And it's just, if you have a belief about something, then that's going to guide you. So, but before we start working on behaviors, like, it's good to back it up to our inner life, our thought life. So I'm just telling you, bad thoughts, tame your thoughts. I got another book coming from Amazon today.
I've got one. It's called The Good and Beautiful God. If you want to read that one, like, oh my gosh, so good.
Yeah. So first 5 weeks after the new year.
26.
Yeah.
Let's go. But I know Greg agrees with this because this is other conversations we've had. But it's like, hey, if you're someone trying to wrestle with your identity,
Yes.
like, I think that you will ultimately not just hear a truer story, but I think that if you're wrestling with your identity, you're wrestling with how you're made in some fashion, who you were made to be, and all the things that just come as part of those meaty conversations of life. I'm confident enough, Greg's confident enough, Suncrest is confident enough that if you were to wrestle with that, no matter how culturally controversial or dense or hot button it is, that if you're willing to actually wrestle with it, that Suncrest is a safe place to do it, not just because, like, we want you to be here for an end result, but because I think that you will actually meet the God that I know made you.
Yes.
And I want to help you meet that God who's going to help you understand a truer story to tell you about you.
Yeah. I think, sometimes it's pulling back the curtain because we experience this pastorally, right? We understand there's people sitting there every week.
Yes.
And they might be on their first visit into our church.
Yep.
And they're wrestling with lots of stuff, including a gender identity piece.
Yeah.
And I want them, so, I think everyone who knows me knows how much the story of the prodigal son means to me. So one of the things I've been thinking about lately is, when the prodigal son decides to come home to the father, he knows he wants to go home. What he doesn't know is whether home wants him.
Oof.
And I think that's what I think. When everybody walks through our doors, I want them to know, we want you here.
Yeah.
Home wants you. You can walk in these doors, and we want you to be here and take this journey. And you won't be ridiculed. You won't get our finger wagged at you. We understand people are wrestling through things, and we'll walk the road. It's full of grace and full of truth. So I just want that to be true of, like, literally our weekend services.
Yeah.
People walk in, but you are the church, Suncrest Church, if you're listening. And when they walk into your home, right, you are the church. I'm like, I hope your posture is, hey, I'll walk with you. I'm a safe place.
Yeah. I don't have to have the answers.
I don't have to have the answers, and I don't need you to bend to my thing, even if it's right.
Yeah.
On the moment we meet, as a condition of us taking a journey together.
Yeah. Because I didn't bend to God when he first started the journey with me.
Oh my goodness.
So if my assumption is you're supposed to bend to me, guess what? I'm assuming a lot more efficiency in my ability to lead people somewhere than God has.
And we have some of these pastoral conversations. We have them with parents of adult children or teenage children who are wrestling through this. Our student ministry, Noah and Zach, like,
they're feeling it.
You can imagine they're leading through these conversations, and full of grace, full of truth, but we're not trying to. Again, I just don't ever think it's helpful to drop a bomb in the middle of a conversation that needs to be safe.
Yeah.
So
it's good.
Yeah.
All right, number 7. What's your view of Halloween participation?
Yeah, we're a little late on this. Hope it serves you well. 11 months later, but
Next year, spooky season.
I'm going to try to give you a very short answer. Our family participates in Halloween in our neighborhood. Like, we want to be the greatest neighbors. Our kids dressing up has always been just a blast of a night for us. We think it's a hospitality posture to our neighborhood. And then I'll have people say, but don't you know, the roots of Halloween are evil, right? And I'm like, I know. Like,
Sure.
I am not surprised that the roots of Halloween really are evil. Those are the roots of something,
Sure.
right? And it's played out over a long time to what it is today. And, our kids are not dressing up as ghosts and goblins and witches and things like that. But let me give you what I think is the most important passage about this. In the New Testament, Paul is addressing a group. They're in an argument. All the food in the marketplace, they're buying their meat out of the marketplace.
Yeah, all do.
All of it has been sacrificed to idols.
Sorry, Aldi.
we
We love you.
we love Aldi.
We do. My wife and I shop exclusively there.
But also Strax, because we love Northwest Indiana. And
Yeah.
anyway,
Yeah.
food sacrificed to idols. So all the meat in the marketplace has been
sacrificed.
previously sacrificed in an evil, ungodly way to some idol that is not Jesus.
Sure.
Right?
So we could even take the word evil out of there. It's been sacrificed to another god.
To another god. Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
like we can even take some of the heat off of that.
Yeah.
Like, let's just juxtapose it.
That's good.
Not Jesus,
Something else.
something else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the question for the Christians were asking is, hey, can I eat that meat?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I'm hungry. It's what's in the marketplace, da 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 da.
Yep.
But also its roots, or that it was sacrificed to idols. And you know what Paul's answer is? You can eat it. You don't have to eat it. If something in your conscience is keeping you from eating it, I'm not trying to convince you have to, but it is perfectly fine to eat it. And then for people who are eating it, he actually says, have some grace to your weaker brothers and sisters who can't do that. So
There you go.
So.
Which isn't Greg calling anyone who feels like they can't or won't celebrate Halloween week?
I'm not calling them weak. I am saying that Paul's perspective, because this is the juxtaposition, right? Here's what I experience. People who think they're the real Christians are the ones who won't celebrate Halloween.
Sure.
And I'm saying I'll put up with people who are not understanding the scriptures and may even have a little arrogance about how they're the ones who are right about this. And I think Paul is saying, hey, on these disputable matters, don't quarrel with the weaker brother.
Yeah.
So that's his language.
There you go.
So
That's Paul.
Yeah.
All right, number 8. I hear about quote unquote woke ideology, but people use the word to mean different things. Some seem good about. Whoa, I can read. Again, I think I've just memorized a bunch of words. Some seem good about righting social injustices, but others use woke as an insult. From a biblical perspective, what is woke?
Yeah. I'm gonna not spend much time on this. I actually have a long answer here. Well, I know. But here, I think what's happening here is there's a word that means something culturally today that is different than it meant
It's
10 years ago. Right? And language changes on us in that way. And, and we deal with it. But again, I mean, I know some of you are disappointed that I don't grab hold of these cultural hot point words and use that myself.
Yeah, I'm looking to be rage baited.
Yeah.
Come on, Greg.
But I'm like, so, some of you have heard me tell this story. Why not? The scriptures, let me say it this way. The scriptures regularly refer to the idea that we need to awaken to something. And the idea of awaken is woke.
Yeah.
Right? Those are the same word, the awaken and woke. Now, woke has gone on to mean very particular things culturally to us. But the idea that I would be jostled, that I'd pay attention to injustices that are out there, that I would be light into a dark world, that a church would awaken to its mission in the world is the most biblical concept that there is.
Right. But they're not woke.
But this is the language dilemma, right? So I'm like, I have a friend who started a church in St. Louis, and based on the passage that says awaken, years ago, he called it, this was the name of the church, Woke Church. And then 2020 happened, and 2020, and now he's like, now I'm pastoring a church called Woke Church, and now people think I mean something than the Bible actually says about it. And since then he's changed the name of his church, right? Like, that's what you have to do. But it's like, I don't even know what to say today about the word woke, because it's not the same as what the word meant 3 years ago. And when someone watches this podcast 3 years from now, and I say what I say today, I'm pretty sure it will have moved again.
So it's not the same as when it was a part of a song in the 1930s, when it was first even publicly stated as an ideological statement.
So just live awakened, if I can say that. Go read Ephesians chapter 5. Go read Romans chapter 13, where it will talk to us about. Let me just read these passages. This is why it said, "Wake up, sleeper, rise from the dead, and Christ will shine on you." That sounds pretty positive about awakening. In Romans chapter 13,
It was pretty direct.
I'm just gonna read this whole section here. Whatever command there may be, they're all summed up in this one command: love your neighbor as yourself. Love does no harm to a neighbor. Therefore, love is the fulfillment of the law. And do this, understanding the present time. The hour has come for you to wake up from your slumber,
But not be woke.
So
Wait, wake?
be wake. Be waked. Bake. Yeah. Anyway, so I'm sorry if that's not a super helpful answer to the question. I just want us to be careful about lightning words that change, and phrases that change meaning over time.
Romans 13, you should read it. All right. Racism. Just a real light ending to the conversation.
This is the last.
So racism as one of the biggest or greatest or most significant sins of America.
So that's people have wanted to talk to me about this. I've said abortion and racism are the two greatest sins of America.
You said that you're not one for hot takes, but boy, people are pretty hot about this take.
It doesn't feel like a hot take to me, but I guess the responsiveness is. So again, I'll say a few things. Like, if you wanted to put greed in that mix, I wouldn't argue with you. We could put greed as like, let's go top 3. Now we have 3.
Great.
Right. Also, I am definitely speaking historically. I mean, it's still true today. We're dealing with it today. But when I say sins of America, I mean, I don't know how you get that racism isn't over our 249-year history.
Unless you're kind of rewriting history a little.
I mean, it's crazy, right? So, but now we live in today, right? It's 2025. People are trying to sort through this.
250 years.
I'm going to read what someone wrote to me, because this wasn't so much a question as someone actually wrote me a page long. I can never read the whole thing to you here. And I want to kind of capture it, because I think there's some principles for us to pick up here, right? He was talking about how, he's traveled extensively. He's had African-American roommates. And he says, I have a meaningful sample set of observations, observing life, presidents, pastors, real estate agents, car salesmen. They've often all been different races or sexes, so there appears to be equal access to all jobs and skills. Now, I'll keep reading in a moment, but I'll just say to the person who wrote this, I think you just waved your hand and said there's equal access to all these things, but even in the categories you mention here, it's just historically not true. Right.
Because
so
it'd be president, but that doesn't even qualify sexes.
Out of 40 plus 249-year history we have, but and you mentioned different sexes and races. We've never had a woman president. So again, I don't want to get into the technical argument with what you say.
People are generally referred to as.
I'm gonna live in pastors here just in a little bit of like, of course there's different races of pastors, right? He goes on. There are Christians, murderers, nice folks, jerks, drunks, etc. in all shapes and colors. Definitely true.
Sure.
Likely, if a person has had a negative history with any ethnicity, they will have a negative view of that demographic. It's just life experience. And this is where I want to lean into this conversation, because this is where I think I can lead you somewhere. Okay. Let me finish what he says here, and then I'll make my comments. I would call this self-preservation or survival instinct. You learn from what you observe. And this is where I want to jostle all of us in our thinking a little bit. Do you learn from what you observe? You do. Of course, I hope you do. Right? So I'm not taking shots at the idea that you do learn from what you observe.
Yeah, it'd be foolish to not.
Right. And that's a good thing. And you could almost think of this as like childhood almost, right? You have different experiences, they're coming at you, you're learning. The only world available to you is what you're observing, right? And it's going to shape you. And, I had this experience, again, it's happened to me a lot. Like, hey, I'll be in the commons area and someone will have a baby, and, you know me, so I'm like, hey, I see if the baby will come to me, and it does. And someone says to me, oh, that's so weird. The baby doesn't usually go to men, right? And I'm like, oh, that's interesting. This baby, I'm no child psychologist, right? But has had experiences. And out of those experiences, that's all they have. And so they've categorized some things, and like, so for whatever reason, it's surprising they would come to me because men seem fearful of that person. And I'm like, what else would you expect of a baby? They've had their experiences and they're categorizing some things and such, right? Here's what I need us to do. Don't keep acting like a baby.
Oh, don't be a baby.
Because babies base their whole world and then create categories based on their experiences. But once you move out of childhood, I am desperately hoping you move beyond your own personal experiences and your categorization of people based on your personal experiences. And if I could say this, we all think, we're getting like it's just my experiences. It's what I've been around. So I'm a good judgment. But if you think people aren't feeding you experiences, feeding you perspectives to fight the algorithm, so we're getting experiences that we're naturally exposed to, and we're getting experiences that people want us to have. And if you decide, out of my experiences, I can categorize people, and you've had good, well, let's just make it personal, right? I don't like it when I feel like someone's discriminating against me because I'm a man. It doesn't happen that often, honestly, but it can, and maybe is, especially among young men. And I'm like, that's bad. But if someone says, no, but I'm doing that because I had a bad experience with a man, or I had 3 bad experiences with a man, and so now I'm justified in my conclusion that men are bad, or men can't do this, or I should be afraid of this. When you grow up, you start to expand your view and say, beyond my experiences, let me look at facts. Let me look at data. Let me look at the world as it is. Let me put myself in other situations that give me other experiences. And I just think, then as a follower of Jesus, if I could just push it one more level, now as a follower of Jesus, I'm actually critiquing my own experiences based on what the Word of God says about this world. And how many times, I hope you're all doing this, you're having wrestling matches because in your experience, the world was this way, but now the Word of God says it's this. And I am just pleading with everyone to say, go with what God says, not with what your experiences were. That's what's true. And so I'm asking all of us to be very careful that we feel justified to categorize certain people based on experiences we had or were fed to us or were handed down to us in direct and indirect ways from our parents, generationally. just say, hey, actually, one of the things I need to make sure I do is not just go with my experiences and label everyone in this way. So I'm gonna go on.
There's more to this email.
Yeah. He says, I view us all as souls. Your ethnicity is irrelevant. You're a godly soul or a soul in need of God. That's all there is, right? Now, this is an interesting conversation to me because fundamentally, I largely agree with what he's saying here, is that our primary identity is that we're human beings and our identity is connected to God and such. So, the primary thing about us is not our ethnicity.
Yeah.
Right. However, when you start to take that view and you let it tip over, you can start to be dismissive of the idea that there are different ethnicities. They have different experiences in life. And if I just kind of go straight to, but we're all God's children, I'm actually now dismissing someone's actual experience in life. And this isn't just psychology. This is rooted in the scriptures. I need you to hear this. It is the scriptures that talk about Jews and Gentiles.
Mm-hmm.
It is the scriptures all throughout the Old Testament that talk about different ethnic groups and dynamics. The scriptures are the ones that say, hey, you should probably pay attention. Like, this is a real thing in this world. Samaritans. Let's talk about Samaritans. That ethnicity had a caricature to it. And Jesus, when he tells the story of what we call the Good Samaritan, he is blowing up people's experience with Samaritans or the stories they had been told about Samaritans. That's exactly what he's doing. He's not saying, well, we're all God's children, so these things don't matter. He's saying, actually, it does matter because your view of this person has been shaped by things that have come to you, and I'm asking you to take God's view of this person, not your experience with whatever, and then your interpretations of that experience. And so I think we really have to work hard at this. In today's world, especially when it relates to culture and politics, is it complicated? Of course it's complicated. That's why I'm trying to avoid the most simplistic views that are out there. DEI, affirmative action, those sorts of things. I think they are pictures of good wrestling matches, right? They may not get us to good answers, but we're in good wrestling matches when we think about these things. So, if I was trying to be clear or simple about something, I think, hey, let's talk about when it comes to race or gender, right? I think the goal can't be, or the mantra can't be, every equality of outcome.
Sure.
I think is the way it's said in these worlds, that everyone gets, there's an equal number of every race, gender, and other categories that end up in jobs or schools or whatever. It's not, but equality of opportunity.
Yeah, the equity, that you get the right access to the things when historically you maybe have not.
Yeah.
As a social media image of, like, you got someone who's 6 foot tall, someone who's 2 foot tall, someone who's 5 foot tall, and there's a 7 foot tall fence. Equality would say everyone gets a 6 foot tall fence to look over it. And the 6 foot person,
somebody needs a boost.
Yeah.
Right. That's the point.
Yeah. But equity would say, actually, you just need a step stool. You just need a step ladder. You need a 6 foot ladder. And let's make sure we all get to an equal outcome opportunity.
Yeah. The opportunity for equal outcomes after that. Right. And again, I don't mean to, I'm trying to think of good social examples, but the NFL has what's called the Rooney Rule. So in hiring head coaches and other front office places, the requirement on NFL teams is not to hire a black coach.
Right.
Yeah, the requirement is that you interview black coaches or potential coaches or front office alongside others. And the spirit of the rule is, hey, let's level the playing field for opportunity,
Mhm.
not for the outcome,
Yeah.
right? And do I think the Rooney Rule is scriptural? I don't. That's not what I'm saying, right? And it's complicated, and it sometimes leads to sham interviews. Like,
Yeah.
in any human system that we put into place
Is broken.
it is
That's
broken
like all of
itself,
us.
right?
Yeah.
But we're all kind of like trying to move forward to a better world, a more just world in certain ways. And so we do put some things in place like this. And I think about it pastorally. I would never ever lower leadership standards,
Yeah.
right? To meet a quota of anything,
Yeah.
right?
That's
To
pandering and placating.
yeah,
And
yeah, we're not doing that. But I'm very aware that when we go to hire our next pastors or whatever, my network is more white than black. It just is. And so I actually have to work extra hard to create equal opportunity. It's almost like the Rooney Rule,
Yeah.
right? Like if I don't actually put extra effort into it, I will default into my network of relationships or people who are just like me and actually don't reflect the diversity of the body of Christ as it's designed to be. Kingdom come here on earth,
Mhm.
kingdom of heaven. And so again, it's not about yeah. I I think I want us all to say, hey, let's have some sensitivity toward racial differences. Let's have some sensitivity toward access, to different opportunities. Let's go out of our way to be for someone who's been part of a marginalized community,
Yeah.
right? Let's not hold back from that and think it's godly. The godly thing to do is to raise all up and go forward
Yeah.
from there in a way that might even cost myself, right?
Yeah.
This is the life of Jesus, right?
Time, bandwidth.
Yeah.
Not even just like cultural clout. Like it's like, no,
Yeah.
it's exactly what you just said.
Yeah.
I have to work harder to
Yeah.
broaden my network.
Yeah.
And I have to spend more time and
Mhm.
effort and communication, sometimes money and
Yeah.
like you
Yeah.
name it. In order
And I'll get it wrong
to-
sometimes, right? And then I can admit it when I get it wrong. This is one of the huge things, right? It's like, oh, do I navigate this perfectly? I don't.
Yeah.
But I don't have to defend it when I got it wrong.
Yeah.
I can be like, I messed that up. I learned from someone. Let's move forward. We had on, the last podcast was published. I talked a little bit about Charlie Kirk. And, there's a comments section on YouTube
Yes,
too.
there
Who
is.
knew? It's not just Facebook and everywhere else.
I've heard that apparently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, one of the comments on YouTube was taking exception with what I said about Charlie Kirk and some of the remarks that he made about flying on an airplane as it related to a black pilot. And I'll close this up. Why not close it up on
Something
the
really
podcast
neat.
on something
Really, really simple.
so simple? But I do want to come back to this because again, in that conversation, actually, I'm gonna read part of this to you. I listened all the way to the end, but I have to say you lost credibility with me when you gave partial, out of context quotes by Charlie Kirk. I would urge you to look up his entire conversation, which I have, by the way. Trust me, I hate quote picking, right? So I have done that, where he explained that the reason he would be nervous about having a black pilot is because the airline said that they use DCI practices in the hiring of pilots. DEI. Sorry about that. So Charlie Kirk questioned the qualifications of a pilot that was hired solely because of the color of his skin. He was not complicated, as you put it. So I'm going to look into the camera and say this. The definition of prejudice is that I come across someone and I prejudge them. I prejudge that person based on the color of their skin or some other category. That's what prejudice is. And everyone who's prejudiced has some background reason why they think it is now justifiable. DEI hiring practices, whatever, make the list. They think it's now justifiable to look at someone based on the color of their skin and make a judgment about that person based on the color of their skin. And I'm telling you, it's sinful. It's sinful. I'm trying prejudice. racism. It's as ungodly as it gets. The scriptures take into account that we categorize people negatively based on the color of the skin, and then we treat people individually based on the categories we came up with out of our experience or out of some justified background. And it's pure evil. So don't be prejudiced. Do not prejudge someone based on the color of their skin. Don't say that it's okay to look at someone's skin color and make a judgment about them and then justify it with something else.
It's good.
Why do I end in such a heavy place?
I think partially because, one, as the father of a multi-ethnic family, the father of a growingly multi-ethnic church in a growingly multi-ethnic community,
Mm-hmm.
and the work that Suncrest has done through not just your leadership, but through the people who are here,
Mm-hmm.
genuinely trying to make a difference in what it looks like to be not just for our community, but to see our
Mm-hmm.
community come in ways. It's easy, I feel it, to get hot about a question or to be very, very clear
Mm-hmm.
about how the kingdom of God is, and not in the perspective of I am God and I'm telling you what it is, but from the perspective of dignity and how we operate within that. I don't think
So
it's ending in a heavy place.
So I'm going to say thank you for the kind words, Mitch. I hope all those things you said are true, and I believe they are.
Yeah.
Mostly. But um, my learning from this actually comes from me getting it wrong
Mhm.
and needing someone I respect look me in the eye and say, Greg, I know you think you're right, but you're missing it. And, I've had a couple important conversations like that in my life as it related to some of my background and my lack of exposure. I grew up in a 99% white area. I've said this in different places. I didn't have a teacher in a classroom that was black until I was in graduate school.
Mhm.
And so again, I had experiences. Those experiences shaped me. At some point I had to be jostled out of thinking, like all the ways the experiences shaped me directly and indirectly, the subconscious parts of it. And I needed someone to look me in the eye and say, you're wrong. You gotta rethink that. Bring it into alignment with the scriptures, with what God is saying. And then it is true that, obviously in my family, I have a black son and a biracial son. And yeah, absolutely. In new experiences, in greater exposure experiences, you notice like, oh, that never happened to us or to my kids before. And then it's like even for me, it's like reconciling that, and that could have been me,
Mhm.
right? 15 years ago.
Yeah.
It could have been. And I was unaware. It wasn't evil intentions, but it didn't have humility that said, I need correction here. And I needed correction. So I hope you receive it that way, not as a scolding from your pastor, but as someone who once needed what I'm now trying to deliver to you and feel like God's worked in my life through it.
And I think just to add one last little cherry on the cake, and we can decide what we're going to do with all of this after recording is done. But I do think that one of the things I feel as a pastor on our team is if I'm trying to help someone experience, we said it a little earlier, a truer story
Mm-hmm.
that you would tell you.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to tell me that your ability or inability to view someone with complete dignity and respect is justifiable because of anything, it's not a conversation anymore. Because actually you're just trying to get me to change my mind. And I'm actually trying to get you to change yours. And that, hey, I think we're hung up on the wrong thing. And so in the statement of being complicated or not, it doesn't feel complicated to me to say, actually, if you have a means of justifying why someone is allowed to be prejudiced, I'm actually going to try to change your mind.
Yep.
And you're probably trying to change mine too.
Yep. Yeah.
And so it's not a conversation at that point. And it's not a agree to disagree either.
Yeah. I'm advocating
Yes.
for something. Yeah. Persuasively.
Yeah.
Toward what I, of course, believe is the truth.
Yeah. So,
all right. That's all my questions.
That's all the questions. If you have more, feel free to send them in to the note from Greg. If you're not subscribed for that, you can find it on our website, suncrest.org. And we'll probably be back for some more conversation after ghost stories, unless you basically blow up the comment section on YouTube and are like, please don't ever do this again, which isn't going to happen. And I'm not going to fully read because I'm fighting the algorithm.
Fight the algorithm.
We'll see you guys.
Thanks, Mitch.